Oh,
Body dumped on a Louisiana highway, wrapped in a tarp. Sounds like the beginning of one of those dark detective novels, you know. But this is real life, unfortunately. And today we're going to take a deep dive into a murder mystery that's got more twists and turns than, well, you'll see.
And the truly sad part is that with cases like this, it's easy to get caught up in the mystery and forget that a real person lost their life.
Absolutely. And we'll definitely get into all the details, but you're right, we can't lose sight of that human element.
Exactly.
So to set the scene, we're pulling our information from a recent news article out of WVUE. They've been covering the investigation closely.
Okay.
And it all starts with a grim discovery. Sunday morning in Tangipahoa Parish, someone's driving down Highway 51, sees what they think is just, some trash tossed on the side of the road. Turns out, it's a tarp, and not an empty one either.
Yeah, this wasn't just someone tossing out their old yard waste. Inside that tarp, deputies found the body of William Nicholas Nick Abraham.
69 years old.
Right, 69.
And cause of death.
Yeah.
Blunt force trauma. Sheriff didn't sugarcoat it, called it a very physical, very violent death.
Head, neck, and shoulders specifically is what the article said, just brutal. And it gets even more complicated when you realize this wasn't some random act of violence. Nick Abraham was a prominent therapist from Baton Rouge. I mean, what's the connection to Tangipahoa Parish? It's not exactly right next door.
That's the million-dollar question right there. Did the murder happen where the body was found, or was he killed somewhere else entirely, and then, for whatever reason, the killer decided to move the body?
It's like they wanted the body found but hoped the location would muddy the waters, throw investigators off the scent. Exactly. Why go through all that effort? Was it panic or something more calculated? And then there's the question of Abraham himself. This wasn't just some random guy. He was a former Catholic priest turned therapist, wrote books, even did motivational speaking gigs on local TV.
The kind of guy you see on the morning news with a warm smile, giving advice on how to live your best life.
Exactly. His own attorney said, and I quote, "So tender, so gentle, a servant's heart."
Which makes this whole thing even more unsettling.
Tender, gentle, a servant's heart. Hard to imagine someone like that coming to such a violent end.
It's a real head-scratcher. And it gets even more intriguing from here because the article throws another curveball. We've got a person of interest in the case. Always makes you wonder what's going on behind the scenes.
Definitely piques your curiosity.
But before we get too carried away, what does that even mean in this context? Person of interest. It's not like they're calling this person a suspect, right?
Right. It's a deliberate choice of words. Person of interest just means someone who investigators believe might, and that's the key word, might have information relevant to the case. Could be a witness, could be someone who knew the victim, or it could be absolutely nothing.
Okay, so it's not meaningless, but it's not a smoking gun either. Gotcha. But get this. This person of interest was caught on camera, ready for this, driving Abraham's car.
Yeah, you don't see that every day.
Talk about a bold move. What's the thought there? Did they think no one would notice?
It definitely raises more questions than it answers. Were they borrowing the car? Did they take it without permission? And if so, why?
And here's the kicker. Baton Rouge police tried to pull the car over a routine traffic stop, you'd think, but the driver. They hit the gas, led the cops on a merry chase, ditched the car, and then vanished. Poof, gone.
Talk about suspicious behavior, right?
You think, if you're driving the victim's car and you're innocent, you'd think you'd, pull over and be like, hey, officers, I can explain everything.
yeah.
Not exactly the actions of someone with a clear conscience.
It's possible they panicked. Maybe they had something to hide completely unrelated to the murder and just freaked out when they saw those flashing lights in the rearview mirror.
Possible, but at that point, you're only making yourself look more suspicious, right?
Exactly. So now we've got this mystery driver, a car chase, and still no clear motive for Abraham's murder. It's like trying to assemble a puzzle with half the pieces missing.
And we haven't even touched on what their connection to Abraham was in the first place. Client, colleague, random encounter through his TV appearances. So many possibilities. So where do investigators even start putting these pieces together? We've got a beloved therapist, the victim of a brutal attack, his body dumped miles away, a mysterious driver, a car chase. It's like something out of a movie, except it's all too real.
It's definitely a complex case, no doubt about it. But you know what they say? Every contact leaves a trace. And that abandoned car, that's a goldmine for forensic evidence.
Oh yeah, fingerprints, DNA, maybe even fibers from the tarp they used to wrap his body. It's amazing what they can find these days.
Absolutely. Technology has come a long way. And even if they don't find a direct link to the killer, they might be able to rule some people out.
Speaking of linking things together, what about the location where they found Abraham's body? Seems like the killer put a lot of effort into separating the crime scene from the dumping ground. Any chance they'll find anything useful out there in the middle of nowhere?
It's definitely possible. Even the most careful criminals make mistakes. A stray tire track, a footprint, a discarded cigarette butt. You just never know what might turn out to be a crucial piece of evidence.
It's true. Sometimes the smallest detail can crack a case wide open.
Exactly.
And while the forensic teams are busy analyzing every speck of dust and fiber, I'm guessing the detectives are digging into Abraham's life, trying to figure out if there's anything in his past that could point to a motive or potential suspects.
Oh, absolutely. They'll be looking at his client list, recent arguments, even going way back into his past to see if there's anyone who might have held a grudge.
Did he have any enemies? Business rivals? Jealous colleagues?
Those are all possibilities. They'll be looking into all of it, and they'll be trying to build a timeline of his last few days, where he went, who he met with. Every little detail could be important.
It's just, it's hard to imagine someone wanting to harm a man like Nick Abraham. He dedicated his life to helping others. It's a chilling thought that someone he may have trusted could have been involved.
It really is.
This whole case is a tragic reminder that evil exists in the world, even in the lives of those who seem to be surrounded by goodness.
It makes you wonder about the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface.
And it reminds us that we never really know what's going on in the minds of those around us.
We can only hope that the truth comes to light, and that Nick Abraham's family and friends can eventually find some measure of justice.
Absolutely. And hopefully by shedding light on this case, we can all be a little more aware of our surroundings, a little more cautious, and a little more willing to speak up if we see something that doesn't seem right.
Because you never know. That one small action could be the key to preventing another tragedy like this from happening.
Well said. This case is far from over, and we'll be following it closely.